All right. Welcome back to another episode of Surprisingly Sober podcast. I'm here today with Jimmy D'Amico. Jimmy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Give us a little background.
Sure. I grew up in Revere, Massachusetts, Saugus area. In junior high school. I met your dad when I was in my 20s at Bellevue Country Club. I hit the jackpot that day. And,
Yep.
we've been friends for a long time. And I'm the owner of Century 21 Northeast and Century 21 Integra. And I've been growing this company since my early 20s.
Awesome. So, want to talk a little bit about the sobriety, your path. I know you're coming up on a huge milestone of 9 years, beginning of December. Do you want to kind of give us some insight on how you maybe decided to get sober and what your rock bottom kind of looked like?
I always drank. I drank from young age. We wasn't that big of a deal growing up. I guess it was a big deal, like trying to get the booze, but I always had a way to, I always worked. So I always worked with people that were over 21. So I never really had a problem getting beer after the prom or before the football game or anything like that. So I was always pretty good at managing my alcohol, and I just never seemed to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. I always seemed to be kind of evasive. I remember one night in the woods up by Mount Hood. I think like 80 kids got busted for drinking in the woods, and maybe like two got away, and I was one of the two. So I've always had like that kind of with my drinking. I was always kind of charmed. I remember getting pulled over drunk driving one time, and I happened to know the cop,
Yeah.
and it was like, I felt like kind of invincible when it came to drinking. I had a lot of, if I look back now, I had a lot of rock bottoms. So I was thinking about your story, like your question, like the rock bottoms, and I can't think, like, there were so many, and it was like a consistent, over and over again, that, like, it became like, rough night, but it was much more rough than a rough night. The one thing I will say that, like, I remember very vividly is I was an all night drinker. I like to go all night.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got to the point where I could hear the birds chirping, that was like, that to me is that rock bottom feeling.
Yeah.
Like now I get up and I hear the birds chirping, watching sunrise. But when you saw the sunrise and you hadn't gone to bed yet,
Yeah.
a friend of mine used to call them the loser birds. And you just felt like such a loser,
Mm-hmm.
just staying up until that break of dawn, and you're trying to go to sleep and the birds are chirping, and you're like, you're thinking of all the excuses you have to come up with the next day. And there were just too many nights like that. And I had just finally had enough of it.
My story is kind of similar in that way. Like, you're kind of just like chasing that feeling of the first drink, but like through the whole night. And so, same thing, I'd have work the next day and I would be up until 3, 4, 5 a.m. I'd miss, I'd be late by hours to my job. And thank God I never got fired. But it's like you just keep going. Like for me, I just couldn't stop once I started. It was crazy.
Right.
It's crazy to
And
look back on.
even when like everyone else would go to bed, I keep going, and I
Yeah.
would just, so that was the thing. And it just got to the point that I felt like I had dodged enough bullets, and I had lucked out long enough. And I felt like I was playing with the, I don't know, it's like playing with the house's money. So like, I felt like I had gotten away with so much for so long, like it was
Yeah.
time to like hang them up.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt at the end too, was like there were so many different things that had happened and they started to happen more often. And same thing, got pulled over while you're drunk. I didn't know the cop, but I was able to somehow talk myself out of it. But I always like just barely was able to scoot by that scenario, like and avoid any real trouble.
Right.
So I think my time, in my mind, I was like, my time has to be coming to an end here soon. Like, I've escaped being in trouble and being put away so many times. Like, it's got to be coming soon. So I know that I have to stop. Otherwise, like, I'm not going to stop unless someone stops me. So I had to come to the realization, like, I was so tired of just being like on this wheel every day doing the same thing. I just became so tired and like just finally ready. And my dad the whole time was like, "You have a problem, you got to stop." And I'm like, "Don't talk to me, like mind your own business." And you never want to hear it from anyone else, and you can really only stop like when you're truly ready.
When
And
you're
then
ready.
I came to him. Of course he was right the whole time, but I wasn't going to let him believe that. But finally I was like, "You're right. I'm done." Like, and you were there in the beginning of when I first
I
got
remember.
too. And I think I was miserable, and I'm sorry for that, but I was just like so miserable. I couldn't imagine my life without alcohol and being like in my mid early 20s. I was like, this is so crazy. Like, what am I ever going to do? I'm not going to have fun. So on that subject, did you have any like reservations that you felt? Because for me, it was like, there's never going to be any more fun. I was single at the time. I was like, no one's going to ever want to date me ever. And really just like those two things, I was like, there's no way. Like, I'm not going to enjoy this at all.
Yeah, I remember sitting in front of the coffee shop when your father's always like, go to a meeting, go to a meeting, go to a meeting. And I was, I didn't go to meetings when I quit
Yeah.
drinking at first. So like I had quit drinking a long time ago and I had gone
Mhm.
to meetings, but this time I wasn't going to go to meetings. I wasn't going to tell anyone I quit drinking. I wanted to do it my way. And, your dad, go to meetings, go to meetings. And I remember him
Right.
telling you, go to a meeting, go to a meeting. And it wasn't your thing. I
No.
remember it. He went in to get coffee. I looked over at you. You were like the table next to, maybe like at the same table, but I remember just looking at you and going, do it your way. Just
Yeah.
do it your way. Let him say what he needs to say, but then do what you got to do, because everybody has their own journey. I go to
Right.
meetings now. I like meetings now,
Yeah.
but when I was feeling so raw, I don't know. It went from being lonely because of the drinking to being lonely not drinking. So,
Yeah.
and that was kind of how I did it. And then eventually I started meeting people who didn't drink, and then created some good relationships with people who were on the same track as I was. So it worked
Yeah.
out,
So
luckily.
yeah, yeah, that's great. So I was going to ask you too, like, why did you decide to do it that way? Because I think you and I are similar in that way. Like, I didn't go to meetings. I would go here and there with my dad, but not, for myself. Um, why did you decide to do it that way? And why did you decide, like, not really to tell anyone? Is that just like how you felt most comfortable approaching sobriety?
Yeah, well, I quit drinking for like a year and a half, about um, probably like 8 years previous to this 9 year stretch. I had
Hmm.
quit for like a year and a half, and I told everybody, like, I was big buck holding, standing on the street corner. I was saved, and it didn't work. So, and I had a friend who I met in AA back in those days, and he's since died. But I found out, like, after a while, that he was secretly drinking, and I didn't know it. So I was kind of burned. I was like, I'm not going back there. And and honestly, I didn't truly get it. I actually didn't. I really didn't get it with AA until about 3 years ago. Is like I finally like did the steps, and worked on myself and some of the
Hmm.
things I needed to change, my character, and kind of like ridding myself through the steps of all that guilt, and and that really changed things for me. And I felt like I came out of the other side of that feeling a lot better, because the first 6 years of not drinking, I wasn't like I just wasn't drinking. I was still dealing with all the drama and all the you know I still had like that attitude, that edge. I was really angry.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it took a while. It took a while.
Yeah. So you really didn't work on like any of the underlying things.
It took me a while to get that. I kind of wish I did it sooner, but I guess things happen the way they're supposed to happen.
Yeah.
What I did was when I quit drinking, I went straight into being like a workaholic.
Yeah.
So my focus was on the company and the business and growing the business.
Hmm.
And I remember like 5 years, I got some award, and it was a real estate company award, and it was you grew your business, I don't know, 5 times in 5 years, like 300% or whatever percent. I forget what it was. And they were like, I got this award. It was called like the game changer. What did you do to grow your business? And I came up with all this bullshit. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
we came up with this, we had the technology and we training and recruiting. But really, it was just I quit drinking and I spent all that time, that drinking takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
The party might only take 6 hours, but man, you have to prep for it. You have to make sure your schedule's clear. I used to overload my schedule before I started drinking so I could get everything done. And then I never
Yep.
got my delivery. Oh, I'll get back to you tomorrow. It would always take me like an extra day or whatever. But it took up a lot of time. So I found myself with tons of free time. So I was, and in the beginning, you don't sleep. You drinking and you're up at like 4 a.m. and you always like, at the gym. I'm always like, go to the gym
Yeah.
and then work. So they asked like, "Oh, how'd you do it?" And the whole time it was really I wanted to say I just quit drinking, but I never said it. I was embarrassed, and now I say it when they ask. I tell
Yeah.
them, I don't mind now, but it took me a while to feel that I got to do this. This makes me feel better about me, and it makes me better to the people who I put in my life.
Yeah. I kind of like to say it, and I said it from the beginning for myself, kind of to hold myself accountable in a way, to just put it out there and make it real. And I think that's what I had to do to kind of like commit to myself that this was actually what I was going to be doing. So for me, I did have to do that right from the start. Obviously, everyone's journey is different, but I think for me, it just helped, to make it real and hold
Yeah,
myself accountable.
that's what
Um,
I did. Yeah, and this time I was the opposite, but I really white knuckled it, and so
yeah,
you're not doing that. And I wouldn't suggest that. It was hard to do it that way, but um, I kind of have like this. I don't know. I don't know if this is just me, but like for me, I always just feel like, you know, I when you drink and you drink to excess, my big thing is guilt, shame, feeling
hmm,
crappy about myself. I'm not good enough. This type of thing, and so like I think that when I quit drinking, I really wasn't about forgiving myself, right? So big thing in AA and in group is just like letting yourself off the hook. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to grind it up, punish myself for, I'm going to do, I deserve to feel this terrible way for a while because I made a lot of people feel terrible, So I wish I got into the steps sooner because I think that makes a big difference. It's really working on yourself. I'm ready to do it again.
that's great. Yeah, I'm really not even there yet with the forgiveness, but also because I don't go to AA. So I
Right.
did up to like step 3, and then I just had a situation in AA that I was turned off by. And then I just haven't gone back since. But I've been thinking lately that I do want to explore that so that I can try to work through some of this, the forgiveness and the guilt. And I still feel shame about things that I did. And I'm 2.5 years sober now, but it's because I'm not like facing these things and I'm not working through them. I am going to therapy and doing other things like that. But I think it might be time to hit the
To try
step.
and rip off
Yeah.
that band-aid. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it with your dad, and I was really fortunate that at the time they were doing them on Zoom because we did something called an AWOL, and an AWOL is like a 6 month program with like 14, 15 people, and they do it every Tuesday. It was at the time, I think it was every Tuesday, and
Hmm.
you really get to like go through the steps book and stuff. So I'd never done that before, and we were lucky we could do it on Zoom. because we were in Florida and the thing was up in Boston. So now I think they do it live, and I would love to do it again, but I don't want to be in Boston in the winter. So I might have to try
Yeah.
and find a different one.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Um, what do you think is the best thing that you gained from sobriety, apart from obviously being able to focus on work and grow your business, which you're super successful and I admire you for that. What's another part, like a favorite part for you?
Well, I mean, the kids, I have a good relationship with my kids now. It wasn't easy, being, always trying to juggle the partying, the work, and then also the family. So, my kids, I have a better relationship with all my kids now, and I think that that probably is the biggest reward. That was tough, but it's good that my youngest daughter has never really seen me drink, so it's benefited my relationship with the kids. It's made me a better son, better brother, and definitely a better dad. And I'm lucky. I have people that stuck by me, and and then it's made me better in relationship now. So I finally met somebody who knows that knew when we met that I didn't drink and accepts me for that, and we have a great relationship, and so that's a big victory, because like you said about dating and not drinking, that's tough. When you meet the right person. I just got engaged, and I think when you meet
Oh,
the right
congrats.
person, thank you, and they just it's not a factor, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so that's good. I mean, a lot of times um people are judgmental, oh, do you have a drinking problem? And so it's not a comfortable conversation the first time you meet somebody, for sure.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, I do. And that's why I don't drink
Exactly.
anymore. And it's for your benefit
Yeah.
also. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
exactly.
It's for
That's
the
a
benefit of everyone around me.
Yeah,
Oh
for
my gosh.
sure.
That's so funny. I do want to talk about alcohol like in the corporate culture. So I do work in corporate America. I'm a manager. I'm around alcohol all the time. And my company, I don't know if it's more than other companies, but I just feel like any event that we ever have is centered around alcohol. And I have been there for 5.5 years now. So I've been, the blacked out manager at the party, being driven home by upper management. And then now I've been the sober girl who everyone knows that, doesn't drink anymore. So
Right.
can you kind of talk about your experience with that? Because I, for a while, like, kind of avoided going to functions in the beginning, at least, because I didn't want to be around it. And I just wasn't in the mental space to be able to be around people drinking, especially people that I was drinking with before. Can you talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Yeah, so everything centered around drinking for us. I mean,
Hmm.
everything. When it came, like the way we ran the company, I say we, like me and my brother, people that worked for us, and
Yeah.
we would, a company trip to Jimmy Buffett,
Hmm.
like company trip to the Patriots game, and the bus and the booze, and oh my God, it was crazy. And then even like from a corporate perspective, they would have their awards banquets, and it would just be. Now, not everybody, remember this too, and you probably know this. Not everybody was getting drunk like us, right? There was people having one or
No.
two drinks, and it was nice. And most recently at our Century 21 conference, we had our first ever Friends of Bill W. meeting. So I think it's turning. I think the tide's turning, but I think that we set the tone that this isn't the place to rip it up type of thing. We do Fenway night, we do a family night. Everyone could bring their kids. So yeah, so I think I've kind of softened over the years on the different things that we do. We try to do more family events than
Hmm.
back in, and I don't know how it is for your company, but back in the day, it was like everyone would be able to come to the party, but nobody brought a spouse or a significant other. Everybody just came solo. The company, you'd have to pay to bring your spouse. So like people would go, and it was like a night to blow off steam with your coworkers. But yeah, it was completely different. And I kind of thought that the society was changing a little bit on the partying at different events, but it really hasn't. You know, you would think with this
Yeah.
all the movements going on, that people would tone it down, and it hasn't really changed much.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll still go to things, but in the beginning I didn't want to just because I didn't want to be around it. And I don't care if people drink. Like, obviously, people out there can drink normally, and that's great. But like you said, like we weren't the people going and drinking 2 drinks. Like I was pre-gaming, I was drinking on the drive over. I'm going out
Right,
after for sure, and hopefully I can get some people to come with me, so I'm not going out by myself.
right.
Um, I would always like make the party go on longer, like a never-ending party, and it's like no one wants to come. Like,
You
what
show
are
up
you
and everyone's
doing?
like, "Oh, here he comes! Do a shot! Do a shot!" They're like, "I don't want a shot." And you're
You're
like,
like,
"No, do a shot!"
yeah,
And
you're
if you can get people
forcing.
to do it, you're like winning, and then you drag everybody down with you.
Oh my God, yeah. Or I would like pour shots for people and like make them bigger than mine. So like I would like get them to my level.
Yeah,
It's so
that's it.
embarrassing to admit, but
Yeah, I used to. I
yeah.
mean, where we lived, where you lived, and I lived in Melrose. I mean, we lived in a pretty upscale neighborhood for young people, young families. I was only 28 years old. Your dad was probably 31. I mean, we had nice houses. We belonged to a country club, but we weren't. That. So I have to say that a lot of my issues stem from I was young and I hadn't like it's hard to acclimate to adult life. I went to
Yeah.
college. I was a frat guy. And then all of a sudden I'm married, I have kids and a job. I'm making money. I'm living in a neighborhood. I'm in a country club. Like I didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot for me I was trying to grow up faster than I was ready to grow up. So I was pushing it down with booze and parties just to kind of feel comfortable. But I locked into a good group of guys that we had some fun and I mean my son says, "Oh, how'd you build the company so fast when you were so young?" And Nicholas is 26. I think he's 26, and I was like, I had 2 kids by the time I was 28. Like it
Yeah.
was like I didn't have a choice. Bills were coming in. It's different. So, and the pressure, I think the pressure makes things worse. So I would totally love to coach anyone to kind of, especially at that young age, if you want to try to have success and, that lifestyle of maybe not even living clean, not going overboard, just it's a lot of pressure for young families.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about lately, which you kind of just touched on. Just like I'm a parent, I have Quinn who's 6 now, and we're all just out here for the first time, living. So just like you, when you're growing up, you're trying to acclimate to being an adult. Like I'm still feeling like a new mom, even though I have a first grader. Like we're all just out here doing our best and in therapy, like just talking about childhood and growing up. And I'm like, I don't have like any like ill will towards like my parents or anything with anything that happened because they were just here for the first time, like being a parent for the first time. I'm the oldest kid, like, and I'm going through that now, so I can look at it from like a bigger perspective, I think.
Yeah.
It's just kind of cool to hear you say that because like we're all really just out here doing the best we can, like in every area of our life, and we're all doing it for the first time, and there's no like rule book or like,
For sure.
you know what I mean?
I mean, you're lucky. I remember you in the Bobby car. You're lucky we didn't.
Yep.
You're lucky you're still here. You didn't get run over on Larchmont Drive,
Oh my God.
Larchmont Road.
It's
Yeah,
so
that
funny.
was. I mean, and that was your dad. Your dad was that he built that house. I mean,
Yeah.
he was your dad was my role model. I mean, he helped me in business a tremendous amount. We did a development together. I was in my early 20s. I
Hmm.
was a drunk, and he was a drunk. The two of us we would egg each other on, but he taught me a lot about business and people,
Yeah.
and now we can talk about things and bounce back and forth and help each other. But back then, I mean, he was a few years older than I was, and he was super on top of in my mind, in my eyes, right? I didn't know what he was going through, right? I didn't know how he
Yeah.
felt. I just knew, like, I just looked from the outside, like, this is the guy I want to be. And he gave me a lot of good advice when I was young in business, and and then years later I'm calling him. I think it was like I hadn't talked to Chuck in like 15 years, and I'm calling him 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm like falling apart. I'm like, hey, I've been
Yeah.
sober for 4 years. I'm going through this situation. I'm going through this divorce. I really got to try to not drink, and I don't know what to do. And I was like, I was just, I wanted to hang on to sobriety. I could have cared less about the divorce. I get through that. That was a a blessing for me. I had to get out of there, but I wanted to hang on to that sobriety more than anything in the world. And
Mhm.
that's where I was just falling apart. I was like, I don't know what to do because I never went to meetings.
Yeah.
And he said, of course, the first thing he said, go to a meeting. I don't want to go to a meeting.
I
I
don't want
want
to
to
go.
I come here and I want you to hold my hand and sit next to me until this is over. Go to the meeting. And I went. I went to a stupid meeting on a Sunday night with like two guys and me. And he was right. I started doing that a little more frequently, and but yeah, if I didn't have Chuck, I would have been, I don't know where I would have ended up because it was, those if you don't have meetings or a place to go, like that's tough stuff. It's easy to pick up, and I know that because I've done it. It's
Yeah.
easy. You could be sober for 9 years, and all of a sudden, it's let's pick up. It's just that easy. It only takes a second. I'm always worried about people's drinks in a bar. Like, they give me a Diet Coke, and I'm
Yeah.
always like, I don't want to drink the wrong drink, So I'm like super OCD about what everyone's drinking. I have to watch my cup, like that, because I
Yeah.
don't. The thing for me is, I don't want to start over. I don't want to do a day one. I'm not
No.
interested in that. I like to keep my streak. I want to,
Yeah.
this is the last 9 years of my life have been um, just so much better than all the years before it. I've done really well. I wake up in the morning, I feel good. I feel good about myself. I don't have any guilt. I don't do anything that makes me feel guilty. And that to me just, that's the best part of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, my dad was trying to force AA onto me in the meetings and everything like that. And I know that that works for him and a lot of people, but that's just not the path that I wanted to take. And it didn't work for me. But I think really once he realized that I was able to stay sober, because he told me, like, you're not going to be sober. You won't be able to stay sober.
Yeah.
I think you were probably there when he was telling me this. He's
Oh
like,
yeah.
you are not going to be able to get sober if you don't go to AA. And I was like, I absolutely will. And like, please don't tell me how to do this.
Yeah.
But then finally, like, I think it was a year or year and a half in, he finally realized, like, okay, so she's found something that she's able to make connections with other people. And I think he realized, like, he separated AA and connection, and he was able to recognize that I was having these connections in different ways than he was. And then he finally understood. And he even says, like, he's sorry for like trying to force it on me, and he knows that like I was able to do it, and like he sees now. But it's just funny to like look back and like tease him. But
He did the same with me. He said, "I don't know how you stay sober and not go to meetings. I don't know how you stay sober." And I don't know either. But then he like kind of broke down, like the people that I was hanging around with were all sober. So he said, "You were actually going to meetings. You just didn't walk
exactly.
into the room." So I
Right.
was talking to. When I first quit drinking, I was at a Century 21 conference in Utah, and everybody was in the bar, and I was standing kind of in the lobby, and I was starting to walk in and walking out. I was like pacing, and a guy came up to me and said, "You okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just quit drinking. I'm a couple months in. I really don't want to drink." I can hear them, I can hear them calling my name. Where's Jimmy? Oh, we gotta. And I was just sweating. And he goes, "Let's take a walk." So we took a walk and we talked for maybe 2 hours. And he was sober. He was about 7, 8 years sober at the time, or 6 years sober at the time. and he became my best friend. I talk to him every day still. I still talk to him every day.
That's awesome.
So, and he owns Century 21 like I do, and we share ideas about work, and if things get tough, we pick up the phone, we call each other. So yeah, I was going to meetings, but I just didn't know. And I don't think it was until 6 years that I even told anyone that I even became. I think there's something cool about advocating for sobriety now that I didn't feel cool about before.
Yeah.
And it advocates for sobriety now because I want to see people have a better life. And I think that if anyone's even considered not drinking, then you probably should.
Yeah,
Like if you woke up in the morning and said, "I don't think I should drink anymore," if you've ever done that once, chances are you probably should quit drinking. Because I don't think that people that are not alcoholics wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, I shouldn't drink anymore." Like I think when you wake up once and you say, "Oh, I shouldn't drink anymore," you probably shouldn't. And there's an awesome life that you can have without drinking. And how much fun do you have now? I mean, you do have fun, right?
I have way more fun now.
I have way more fun.
And I was so scared that I would never have fun again.
Yeah.
But and the dating. So I'm engaged now to someone who doesn't drink, which
There you go.
I couldn't have fathomed that. Like I didn't think I was ever gonna date again or have any fun. And it's like quite the opposite, and I couldn't be happier. I think there is, it's over glamorized, and I sometimes the sobriety piece, and of course it's amazing and awesome, and like it's the best thing I've ever done, like for myself and for my family and as a mother, as an employee. But there's some things that really aren't talked about too often. We kind of touched on them a little bit, but like the mental health side of it, once you remove the drink, like you still have a lot to work on. So I think letting people know that it's like as easy as we're kind of like giving off, it's really not that easy. And like I still struggle a lot with a lot of the underlying things, but like removing the drink really is the first step to like starting the healing process. And it's a long journey and it's like a daily thing, but I couldn't be happier with like being sober as a whole.
Right. No, I definitely it is a lot of work. Like I was just looking at therapists the other day. I'm ready to go back for some therapy because things come up, right? Life happens. And so all drinking does is it just, my grandfather used to say, he used to come home, he would have a scotch and he'd say, just to take off the rough edges. And that was his thing. We grew up, everybody drank. It wasn't a big deal. But like that doesn't, the men of those generations didn't go to therapy. Like they just pushed it all down. And I think that we live in a new era where, you want to get this stuff out because, this is, life is sometimes difficult. I mean, I have a lot of stuff going on. I have, family and, I have kids and pressure and all that stuff. And, and not drinking is something that you have to stay on top of. And it's not easy. For sure, it's not easy. But the more time that goes by, the easier it gets, right? That becomes drinking now is less of my concern, right? Not drinking.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but then everything else comes out. Like I still have, I can be horribly moody. I can be ungrateful for all that I have. I can forget where I came from. I cannot appreciate people sometimes. Like there's a lot of that. Like the problems that I have today, a lot of people would laugh and be like, that's not a problem. Like, I have problems that, people would kill to have, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to, I think with the meetings, I think it helps me stay grounded and a little more grateful. And I'm not the guy that wakes up every day and goes, oh, look at what a beautiful day. I'm so grateful. Life is so awesome. That's not me. I'm like, here we go. Yeah, here we go. Who's coming at me today? I have like this, I'm like Jimmy, a week. But yeah, like I like when I have those moments where I actually realize when Sandy, my fiance, says, we're so lucky. And I think about it, I'm like, what? We are lucky, and that's cool. But it's hard. Like if you quit drinking today, if today's your first day of sobriety, buckle up. It's gonna take as hard as long as it took you to get to where you are now. It's gonna take you just as long to come out of it. You know,
Mhm.
you didn't become, you didn't do all the stupid shit the first day you had a drink. You
Yeah.
know, you did it over time, and like me, you know, I push the envelope a little further every time. Every time I drink, I did, maybe I didn't get in trouble last time. Maybe I'll do this time, and then you do all the half measures to quit.
Yep.
My half measures, I was thinking about this last night. Uh, I decided I remember when I was in my 20s, I decided that I was going to really cut back because I was going to get home before 2 a.m. Because nothing good happens after 2 a.m. And
Right.
you would have thought I wanted to be sainted for getting home at 2 a.m. Like, hey, look at me, I'm home, 2 a.m. That's so stupid, in retrospect, but it was better than coming home at 4. But you didn't get here. I didn't get to where I got. Like you talk about rock bottoms. I mean, you don't get to the rock bottom the first time you drink. If you
Yeah.
do, congratulations, you're an OG. But it takes a long time to get to that point. So it's going to take just as much time to come out the other side. I see people 56 years sober, 46 years sober. They still go to meetings every day. It's amazing.
That's
And
cool. They must just say, like you said, it must help to keep them grounded then. And that's, what they found was the most successful in helping them to stay sober. Like, I
yeah,
can't relate to it, but I know like you and my dad are big meeting guys, and I think I might explore that option again. But
well, I started again last summer. And this past summer, my brother had the accident. I don't know if you
yeah.
know, he had the accident. And so I started going to meetings because I really needed a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And I always know like if I need a meeting, because I'll just, Sandy will tell me I need therapy, and then I know I need to get back to a meeting because it's usually, So I go to this meeting and I go in the morning and there's a guy there and he's probably been there. I remember him from 17 years ago and he's still there. And every time he talks, he says, I'm an alcoholic. And then he looks around the room and he goes, how lucky are we? Like, right? So it took me a few times of him talking to really like grasp that. And they'll call me. I say, how are things going? Oh my God, the kids, the this, the this, the this. And we just bought this new house and it needs all this work. And, my daughter's going into third grade and I use it now. I say, how lucky are we? And it just deflates you. It just makes you go, yeah, we are lucky, aren't we? And so that's what I like about the meetings. You usually see some old timer in there that just has this outlook. And you just have to keep going to different ones until you find the one that works, right? I've been to
Yeah.
some that I'm like, I never want to go back. I'll drive by and if I see less than 10 cars, I don't go because I
Yeah.
want to be in a small room. I want to be in a bigger room. So you just have to find the right spot.
Yeah, I'm more of a listener in AA than I am a speaker, so I like to kind of fly
Same,
under the radar with a hat
same.
on in the back.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuck likes to, he gets in there.
Oh yeah, he's
He
hosting
gets
the
in there.
meeting, he's
Yeah.
speaking, he's
Yeah.
saying hi to everyone everyone in the whole room he knows.
Yeah.
So
And they
funny.
all know him, and you feel like a celebrity. It's kind of like when we used to go to Vegas. You felt like a celebrity going with Chuck, and now you go to the meetings and you feel like a celebrity going with Chuck. He's always a celebrity. I love him. I'll
That's
tell you,
funny.
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for him. And you find people like that, and you find your people, and don't miss those opportunities for sure in
Yeah.
sobriety.
No,
Because
I'm
people
so
do want to help. They want to help you. Like that's
yeah.
the real genuine thing. People want to help you in AA. And I think a lot of us don't let that happen, right? Because I don't know this, I don't know if I really want any help, but it's there.
Yeah. It's nice. Well, I'm super proud of you for sharing, and I'm so proud of my dad. He's helped so many people, and he's a big reason why, I'm sober. So
I love your podcast. I watch your stuff. I'm very proud of you. I watch
thank
your stuff
you.
all the time. You are excellent at this, and you are an excellent speaker. And you are resonating with a lot of people. So,
Thank you. I
congratulations.
appreciate it. I mean, we started this just because, like you said, like you just want to help people and just speak like your truth. And because Ariel and I had different paths to sobriety, we think we're together able to reach, a larger audience. So hopefully it
Right.
helps someone out there and they enjoy listening, or it's helping them, or they're sharing it with someone, that maybe needs it. I do just want to talk about one more thing. Another thing I'm super proud of, the men's sober living house. Do you want to kind of talk
Oh
about
yeah.
that?
So so we've been looking at we found this house. I found this house on Zillow, and I was like, wow, this is a pretty cool house. It had a lot of history, and it's 3-family house, and it's an old farm. And I showed it to your dad, and I was like, hey, we could probably put a sober living. Actually, I think I texted him the listing and wrote sober living question mark. And so he was like, he called me right away. Let's go see this thing. So we went and saw it. And yeah, we're still under agreement. We're trying to get it closed, but we have a vision, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to help, hundreds of men every year in this sober living facility that we're gonna, put together. The property's great property, and we feel like it's something unique and different, because a lot of times they just put these sober houses in, I would say, more urban communities, so like,
Yeah.
they'll put these sober houses in Malden or Chelsea or Revere, and they'll put them on. I have clients that do sober houses, and they say, we don't want any landscaping, and we want to be on a busy street, because then the neighbors won't care that we're doing this, and we need like 5 bedrooms. And so like they would just buy houses on busy streets, so the guys would, be less of an impact to the city, and they wouldn't have to um, have as much maintenance on the house. This is the opposite of that. This is a
Yeah.
farm. It's rolling green. There's a couple of barns. There's going to be a lot of activities that you can do in a home like this. So we're excited about it, because it really is the opposite of what. And I think if I was coming out of rehab, or I needed to get into a sober living facility, I think this is going to lend itself um, to really great recovery.
Yeah, we saw the property. My dad took us out when
That's
we were
right.
just up when we saw you. But yeah, it's beautiful there. And then he was saying like, maybe you'll be able to have therapy dogs, and maybe you'll be able to
Yeah.
do like different activities, with the barns. And there's so much land. It's so beautiful. I think, yeah, it'll be a lot different than what the other sober living houses look like these days. So I'm
Yeah.
super proud of
So,
you guys.
and I think it's going to be something like that we'll continue to do once we get this one off the ground. I
Yeah.
think the goal for us is, let's find other unique, either similar to this, or even different, but still unique, where there could be a real benefit to staying with us versus staying in kind of a run of the mill type sober living facility. I think our goal is to provide something different than what everyone else is experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm
Appreciate
leaving
it.
for I'm leaving for Grand Cayman today for
Oh,
Thanksgiving. How lucky are we?
how
And
lucky are we?
so I'm glad I was able to do this morning, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving with Quinn and your family.
Thank you. You too. Happy Thanksgiving.